love those island boys. Little girl, use your head. They will tear you up like a paper toy. Oh, no, no, no. Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, no, no, no. When they smile at you, darling, and wink, it's a lethal force that'll bring you down. Trying to get you tipsy like a drink. Love drunk girls.
Hi, I'm Amanda.
And I'm Rumbi.
Welcome to S03.
Hey! We are technically in a long distance friendship, but as you can see, where we at today?
Yes.
Where are we, Amanda? Let the people know.
We are together in Harare. We're so happy to be home together. And as you can see, like, we're trying to calm down so we can record this episode and make it make sense. But we're so excited.
And we love y'all so much. This is the first day we're seeing each other since both coming here. And we were like, let's crack the mic. Let's get to it. Get into it. So I'm so happy.
We're so lame, but like, those who get it, get it.
They get it. It's been too long, and we're just so excited to be here. I think surreal. I think it's surreal. And why are we even here? Maybe people want to know.
Yeah, why are we here?
Especially, I'm supposed to divulge my own views. So we are here for my Roora, or Lobola in Southern Africa, some places in Ndebele too. And that's what we're talking about actually today, right?
And I'm so happy, so grateful we're going through this phase together in person. Like, you know, when you're thinking about it, you're talking, I was like, oh, if I can't make it, I can Zoom, but it's like, you can feel that it was just not going to be the same. So we cannot wait to do this. And like, I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
Really, I'm so happy.
And I'm so happy you're here because I think it brings a bit of that groundedness, like myselfness. And like, I think we might as well jump right into the whole talk around Roora, because I think it is an incredibly layered, like, you've been through the whole process. I am going through it and it's a lot. So yeah, like, maybe what is Roora? How would you define it?
Jeez. Well, obviously, like, it's the traditional way of both two families coming together for two people to get married, obviously. And like, it sounds so simple when you say it like that. You're like, oh yeah, like a wedding. But really, it is not. It's there's so many factors to it. Yeah. And it's like, the missteps are many. So you're like always trying to make sure you're doing the right thing by your culture, by your people, by yourself, by your partner, family. It's like too much.
It changes per family, absolutely. And yeah, it really is coming together. If you want to simplify it to the basic, it's two families coming together, and a cultural celebration of that.
How do you think it compares to a Western wedding, though?
It's quite different. So in the Western world, they would really understand dowry. Like, I think if you watch like old English or Victorian, you know, they understood dowry where you had to marry the right family. So that's a way to kind of explain it. But I think in the Western world, it was the woman who came with the gift or the money. But in our culture, it's the man who says, I've seen your daughter. I appreciate how you've raised her. So that's really what it is. I've appreciated how you've raised her, and I'm giving this gift as a token of appreciation. So that's a big difference. But it was abandoned like century ago or something like that in the Western world, but it's still very relevant.
Very relevant. And in some ways, it's almost like things that you gift are replacements for what she would have been doing for the family. Like, you know, even be it cows or whatever. It's not like we're like equated to cows. That's what people mostly think. But it's mainly just to represent, okay, you're losing this asset and we're gaining her. So here you go.
Here's something for you. So I think, that's a big one. And I think the scale of the event is just, it's not as, you know, I think Western weddings are very like intimate and personal. Like here, it's like, it's our family. It's really not about you as the bride and groom at all.
They take that to the limits, actually. Because even Western try to be like, oh yeah, mother of the bride, make sure you do this and that for her. But here it's like the whole family. Like, everyone has a role to play. and don't overstep your boundaries. Know what you're meant to be doing.
Yeah, exactly. So many things. And then the money thing is probably the major thing. And I think that's why it's such a sort of not contradictory, but like a very touchy subject, Roora, because there's people actually fork out like actual money and symbolic things too, like cows, Amanda mentioned, some blankets like for the mom, and there's a cow for the mom, and there's certain things, groceries for the family. So it's it comes out material. So that is probably one of the big things that's different to Western.
And wrapping your head around that. Because now it seems like you're being bought, right?
Yes.
Because you're like, okay, why am I paying all this and I get a wife at the end of it?
Exactly.
So it's so tough for us to answer that, because to us it's like, no, you're not being bought. But then it's like, yes, you have to buy those things.
Yes, exactly.
So it's so weird.
Would you say then it has a place in our modern society?
Woo! In a word, personally, I think no. In a word, I think modern, no. Because some people do take it seriously to the point where they're like, oh, we did the Roora, we own you. You know, we bought you.
That's problematic.
You know, the next day you have to be doing all these things because, and if you don't perform to their standard, you're not performing to the quality of what they bought you for, right? So I do find like that's, I mean, being a feminist and someone who's pro-equality, I'm like, no, that just sets a weird dynamic in a marriage and families. But having said that, I don't want it to go away completely. I think also like with Zimbabwe's economic collapse, it kind of made it more materialistic than it needed to be. And that is probably the issue rather than the actual Roora itself, for me anyway.
I agree completely. And I think I like the symbolism of it, like families coming together, that love, that support, but it's just like the monetary value that is placed on it, that is problematic. And oftentimes it's the first time the man's family is meeting the woman's family. So imagine like you're just meeting over like and talking money. You know, like if you talk about things like small talk in general, you're not supposed to talk about religion, politics, or money. Now this is the first time you're meeting someone and you're talking about money, like make it make sense. So I think that's what's really tricky about it. It's like, it's a very like, obviously people come with defenses because already like money is a touchy subject just in general. And now it's like, why must I give you? So that aside, I think the idea, the symbolism is really beautiful. I think, you know, as Zimbabweans, we've lost a lot of our culture, and this is something that we managed to uphold, but I think because of economic reasons. So if we were able to step back from that and just celebrate the culture, I'd be happy with it.
I mean, because then what do you think you like or dislike about it? Because it sounds like, there's a lot to say in both sides.
I dislike if you want to have my daughter, this is what you have to bring, or show us how much you value her through money. Because as Amanda said earlier, like there's so many people who've been in sort of relationships where now the husband takes advantage of the wife because I paid for this, you know, I need to perform. You need to perform. I own you. Oh, you can't cook. You better sort it out because I paid this. That is a really problematic thing, you know. For me, that's what I dislike. Again, what I mentioned about families meeting maybe for the first time, and it's like now you're just talking money, and how it can be very much like, I want my own at whatever cost. Not thinking about the couple's future. That's a big one.
Actually, funny enough, we talked about that. We didn't actually talk about what the money is used for.
It
hardly goes back to the couple.
Exactly.
It's like for everyone who feels they played some sort of role in raising, all the fathers, all the mothers, all the, you know, like that incorporates aunts and uncles, they're meant to get their share for having done such a good job raising you. I think for me, what I really, really dislike about it is that it brings everything to the forefront. So like everything we've talked about on this podcast, from comparison culture to classism to like everything, because then you're like, the other family's judging you, right? They don't know you. So they're like, oh, they live there, they must have this, which is classism. You know, their daughter is overseas and she's a doctor, so they obviously could afford, so we can then charge. Like it's just so warped. And I hate that it changes family to family, because then you can't really offer much advice. You're like,
It
this
depends
might
on
work
the
for
family.
me. Yeah, but it
Yeah.
depends on your family.
Yeah.
And then it's like, yeah, if the family has a lot of issues that complicated relationships, again, we talked
Mhm.
about, then it's like, okay, do I really need your parents broke up or whatever? Does the father really get to have much say if you didn't have much say in your life?
Yes, yeah.
You know, there's all these things that come to the forefront, and I think
Yeah.
it's just because it's such an intrusive
Intrusive is the word.
family thing to go through.
Intrusive is the word.
And everyone, like, you're parading essentially as a family, like, this is what we can do, this is what we have. And,
It's so complex. Like, we could go on and like on the dislike side of things.
too much.
But I think in terms of the like, I think, you know, me being in the thick of it is seeing family and friends that I haven't seen in a long time. Like, just the coming together for something positive, for a change. Especially having gone through COVID, and you're just like, you know, this is such a nice thing to have. So I'm really, really appreciative of that. And I think too, just like, again, seeing our culture come to life, and also everyone pulling together as family to make things happen. Because one thing about Roora and in our culture, you don't do things in isolation. It's not like just like me, my mom, my dad, my brother and sister are running the show and everything's going to be done by us. It's like everyone has to chip in. But I don't know for you, you've been through to the end. Like, what did you see?
I actually echo exactly what you said, because that is what it's going to be like on the day. Like, you find that people will just do what they need to do.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes, especially for Rumbi and I, we're much like planners and want to think things, but then also you have to just trust the process, because you're like, they know what to do.
They do.
You know, if things need to, it will just all band together. I don't think it's going to be perfect, but it's like, you really just see the value of family.
Yeah.
You know, and like, even if your family is complicated and all this, on that day, they know what to do. So it's like, I love that about it. But I think it's just so stressful to get there.
Yes.
By the time you get there, it's like more relief. You're like, oh gosh, finally.
Yeah.
But I think also the banding together comes because everyone else went through it.
Yeah.
So they know.
Understand.
They understand. They're like, no, I'll be there for you. Like, for me, I personally knew I have to make this. Probably more so than your actual Western wedding, which is weird for me, because I think this is more complex.
Yes,
like,
it is.
Western weddings are more, you see, you get what you get, you know, like that's what if you plan it, it will happen.
Yeah.
But with this, it can go.
You really don't know. It's just like you're trying to answer those questions and be like, okay, so it's like, well, it might work like that, but it might work like, you know, and there's so many, and you're so right. I'm so grateful to have you, because something else I've been saying is you're kind of living in a dream state, because so much has happened. Everyone's trying to fix things around you, and there are things happening. Like, you need like that centering, and like having a friend or like my sister, people who know you are able to say, like, it's okay, like, you know, why don't you do this, or you know. So it definitely helps. Yeah. So do you think there's even a way we could improve this? Or how do we? Is there a way? Could it? Or we're just wishful? It's just wishful thinking.
I think because we've said it so many times, it depends on the family. It makes it hard to really improve. Yeah. Because it's like, if your family is really like full of these strong guys who are going to be demanding all this, then your family's going to have that narrative. If your family is more relaxed and chilled, they're going to. So it just depends on your family. So it makes it quite complicated. But I think the only thing I like about the process is that if we were involved much earlier, I don't know, but for me, I hardly knew anything about Roora until it was my time.
Yeah, 1000%. Do it. Or you just go to a cousin.
But you don't see,
and you're like,
you see it.
I don't really know what's going on.
Or because we're girls, you vanish to the kitchen. And then like, okay, well, I'm just helping out dysfunction. But like, I feel like as women, maybe we could pass on or talk about it much more openly. And like men, I think with their sons, just much more like, oh, when the time comes, is what's going to happen, and da 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 da. But I feel like that's kind of fallen away as well.
It has.
We don't really do that.
Yeah,
like,
I'm with you, and I think it would be great to kind of get like I don't know if you could get a benchmark of like what is too much or like enough, and really to highlight the symbolism, like education around it, why it started, and the symbol. So what you're speaking about, but and the symbolism around it and why we uphold it, and to be less of a materialistic thing, or I don't know how to explain it, or like a leeway for couples who are so strained they can't meet the requirements that government can still be like, you know what, it's acceptable. You know what I mean? Like, where it's just accepted, you're still married. Because like, I think I've heard too many stories of people who you know, they were just like, I can't do this. It's too much. It's way out of my reach. And then they ended up not getting legally married as a result. So.
Yeah, that's so true, actually. So it's almost about access as well. Because you can't assume every family will be ready to go through the process. Yeah. And like, it's, I mean, I can't imagine being in love with someone and then not getting to carry on with my life because we can't afford 1,000%. So that's actually quite interesting.
Yeah, strange. But then some people will be like, it takes away from the nuance of the culture, which is that every situation is supposed to be looked at independently, and it's just some people are irrational. So, it's tricky.
Would you want your kids to go through it though? No. That was too quick, Rumbi. Like, no, thank you. No. Really?
No. I think the celebration, sure, we could do like the African celebration, but like the actual Roora negotiating, having to be, no.
But the annoying thing about our culture is it's not even up to us.
No, it's not. 1,000%.
All the uncles are gonna.
What you mean? Yeah.
And that's the thing. It ties to respect as well.
And patriarchy.
Because I feel like had we gotten married or you going through this process, if you just said, "Oh, me and Tom are eloping," the energy people give you for your marriage or your well wishes would be so different. They'd be like, "What are you talking about?"
You hit it on the nail on the head. So why? So like, because people ask like, well, "Why do you still do this? Like, you're educated, you know." And I hate that because it's like, it's as the girl child, I feel you feel really stuck because it's like, you know, and you sympathize for your partner, your future husband, but at the same time you understand your family and know that for them to respect your husband or your future husband, you need to go through this process. So you're just stuck. So you're like, we gotta do it. I know it's a bit twisted, but we gotta do it. But we, you know, so
And even for you, I think as a wife, even because as much as you said, some people don't get legally married. And to your face, people won't say anything, but they'll definitely snicker behind your back. Especially when you want to have kids. Because then they'll be like, so your kids are out of wedlock. Like, what is this?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
you want your partner to be respected as like, this is a member of the family. Like, because again, culturally, it's bigger than just you and your partner. It's like the whole squad. So you want, now you go to a family and it's like, oh, who's this? Like, you know what I mean? Just like that energy. Ain't nobody needs that.
Boyfriend. Also called boyfriend. Right. And it's like beyond race as well. So even if you are the same race, it's not about to get the title that comes. Because there's two things, and Rumbi said this before we started recording. Being pregnant and getting married are like the pinnacles of society. So like, and you know, funny enough, when it comes to getting married, it's like, no, it has to be done. There's no one. You can forgo the Western way.
I don't think I even thought about going to my dad and saying, what if we don't do this? Like, I just knew there was, I don't know how to explain it. It's so deep. Like, you just like, there's no way.
So
like,
entrenched.
So entrenched, you know. You just hope and pray your parents are reasonable and understanding. But I'm also, and I said this to Amanda before, I'm also at the point where like we'll try, and then when things get irrational, it's like, you know what, we tried, thanks. And carry on with our lives.
And African culture is so good at shaming you, especially because then like you think you've disappointed your parents. If you did find the love of your life and you didn't go through the process, it would be like, I don't know, people who've done it, please let us know. People who've decided to forgo, how do you carry on? Because that's some sort of courage that I don't think I could do.
I think we care too much. I think we do, and I think we value, and rightly so, as we've been raised to like value family and value like respect and all that. But hey, it comes at a cost also. It's like, it's not easy. It's very, and then like going again, it's layered, two layered. And I would like to know from you, how was it for you to explain to your husband, Marcel, the process of Roora? How do I can share mine, but like
it took years. Like, I think, you know, when you're like in a relationship with someone and you chit chat about, like, people try to act like, okay, engagements in itself could be a surprise, actual engagement, but the talk around it is something you would have bounced off each other. At some point in your relationship, it becomes so serious that you're like, okay, not today, but we're leading towards there. And sometimes the crossroads in a relationship, because then if he's not vibing with that, you're like, okay, then you have to decide what's going on here. And when we started like discussing that, obviously him seeing other friends, Zimbabwean friends get married, he was like, what is this all about? And so I first had to educate him to a point where he understands and sees its value before then I could loop in the family. Because then I knew they would only ask me certain questions, like maybe 5, then they'd ask him 100, you know? Because then they're like, hey, my person, what's really going on? Are you okay? You know, is it get out? You need to escape. blink twice. You know, so like, yeah, it's this girl, and also think this whole label of gold digging. Being in a generation you talked about in the previous episode, you're so conscious of money and like your impression, especially with families, is like, yeah, obviously there's a stereotype that we're looking for a rich white man or whatever. So it took a lot. Like I felt like sometimes, because you're also questioning, as you said, you're educated, so you're like, some things you can't even give a straight answer, and then someone is expecting one, so you're like,
and it's tension, and then like you find yourself speechless,
and you find yourself getting defensive. Like, sometimes you ask me an innocent question and you argue because it's like to the point where it's like, what are you trying to say about me? And you're taking it personally, and you're like, oh no, I need to calm down, I need to educate. So it's
so layered.
The communication has to be open
and uncomfortable.
And honest to another level.
So uncomfortable, like, and you have to lean into that discomfort and listen while you're feeling this feeling and listen to what they're saying, process it, take a beat, and say, okay, what I'm understanding is, also come from your perspective, share, like, maybe you're not, sometimes you don't have the answers, like, why isn't it just cut and dry, cut and paste? It's like, I don't know how to explain that to you. Like, if the
and I think for me also what sucked was like sometimes you'd be explaining it and then your parents would do something else. You're like, oh okay, no, actually this is like, because also you're trying to educate yourself too, as Rumbi said, you know, we need to keep honoring, making sure we're passing down the information, because sometimes you're just as lost and then now you have to explain to someone else via your parents who are not meant to really directly talk about it. So it's like twisted.
Girl, like,
so twisted. And then now you're talking to aunts that you haven't talked to in ages for info. It's
I don't know, like, when you go through it, you get it. Like, I don't know how to, like, there's been so many times where, and then you start being protective of your culture too, and your family too, because obviously it's you, who you are, right? It's where you come from. And then there are times too, you're also like, but guys, like, what are you doing? Then there are a million of questions, and the questions don't just happen like in one sitting, like, because for me, like with my partner, like we started talking about it like early on, like marriage, what would that entail? Like, because also you don't want to lead them blind leading, like, you know, they're blindsided. Oh, you didn't tell me about this. So you're explaining, and they think they get it also, but like, and then when it starts becoming more real, you talk a little more about it, then it gets more real, you get engaged, and you constantly talk about it. And you question yourself, should I have nipped this in the bud? Should I have like made this smaller scale? Should I have done, like, there's so many things that are like, and you are the most difficult thing is you are in the middle. I don't know how else to explain it. No, especially like, I think for us being in intercultural, interracial relationships, you have to be the voice, like educating, giving info to your partner so he can inform his family, as Amanda explained. Then you also have to be the one communicating to your family, like what you can or cannot do, defending your partnership to your parents, and also defending yourself to your partner's parents. Explain, like, I'm still Rumbi, the one you guys know and love before all of this. And hearing different perspectives of questioning of like, why doesn't it happen this? Also defending culture, which is another thing. Like, I think the Western world views things through the Western lens. And saying, you think it's archaic because that's a Western lens. But what if you looked at it from this perspective? Obviously, we already have our own reservations. So you're telling someone to look at it from this perspective, but you're also like, I don't really agree, you know, but it's also like saying, like, you're only seeing it from that. It's just, it's a lot. It's a heavy, heavy load. And then when the actual, like, arranging comes, like, planning.
And I found that, I don't know if you had the same. Like, also that's when we get caught up in Western world, where we live and how we've partially been raised. Like that, it's like push and pull between the two, because like sometimes they say, let's just say throwing out a number there, it's 50,000 for Roora. And you're like, that's a deposit for a house. Like, what are we doing? 1, 2, and then your partner's also saying that too. And you're like, rationally, and we talked about this in finance before, you're like, I know what I'm meant to be doing, and is this throwing away money? What's going on? Should we just elope? Should we just screw everyone else? And it's about you and me, but then it's not like that in African setup. It's not just about you and the partner in a marriage. So you're constantly having that push-pull, and then if he's refusing to pay the 50,000, now you start thinking, but do you think I'm less than that? You know, then pride gets in the way. Pride, ego. Yeah. So do you want to discuss what has in the box? Like, what's this? Like, you know. And I feel like people, maybe the closest thing you can relate to in a Western setup is probably maybe your engagement ring or your wedding. Like, if you get a true, you know, a ring you want, and like, this guy didn't respect me. But you can't really expect that from people. And the way it works usually with African families for the men in terms of finances is the family pools together. So they would help him get the cows. They would help a father raising sons would already raise his sons,
planning for that day.
One day, we know. Then a father raising daughters would know one day. Like that's the way.
But if it's Western culture, they ain't plan for nothing.
Exactly. And then they're thinking, okay, and then now we're also caught between the two, as we said. So now you want a white wedding, but you also have to, by law, have to have a marriage certificate. But you also want your traditional one, and then financially you're saying to your guy, this one is all you, but this one we can share. Because you think, don't you share both? But then it doesn't work like that. Or then sometimes they can flip it to you and say, oh, so you guys pay for the Western one? Some Western culture, you pay
the bride family. Girl up. How I try to console myself when like there's all these tensions is like, again, it's our culture and family bands together. So it's also knowing that if ish hits the fan and I was desolate where I was and I needed to move back home, someone would offer a roof over the head or some support. So that's the other thing that I also have had to try and explain is that our culture is not like each man for himself type of thing. Like they'll always be like, oh, like here's mini meal, here's something for you to take with you. And that's also our culture. And even with these events, people do bring gifts, often monetary gifts, you know? So, but the thing is, it's like, you can't be like, I expect everyone to bring me X, Y, Z, otherwise. So you don't know, it's like, it's a touch and go. You can't bank on it, but it's such a beautiful thing when it does happen. So it's also trying to explain like that essence of like, it's having that community and how we just are. Unfortunately though, because we are now different displaced, different places, it doesn't fully all come together like that. And also I think unfortunately too, because of like adapting a lot of, this is the other thing about Zimbos, we adapt a lot of, or adopt rather, a lot of Western lifestyle and ideals. So we've sort of separated as families in that way. But then when it suits us, we want to cling on. We're like, this you can't compromise on. So it's like you're trying to have the best of both worlds. So then you're losing touch with family, but expecting them to show up at such events. So it's like,
you sound so out of breath when we're talking about this. So
I was just like,
it's so personal as well, because you're like, somehow this is not what you pictured, but this is what's happening. But at the same time, what were you picturing? Like, it's just so. And I think for me, the hardest thing was it did bring to the forefront intercultural, interracial relationship. Like, because then I was thinking, if you're a Zim guy, I wouldn't have had to explain. But Zim Shona guy, because maybe they, you know, it's like. So it's just, but at the same time, the expectations could have been much higher because it'd be like, well, you know what you need to do.
Exactly. And like kuperekwa and the work you have to do as a daughter-in-law and all that. So like you're like, okay, it might ease, but I think the intercultural really the load beforehand is next level. I don't even know how to, like people are like, oh, you got it easy, and it's like stressful. And you're assuming that they can afford. Again, as we said, a father raising an African household would know that's what's going to happen. But then for like a Westerner, you don't know what their background is. And maybe for them, they're like $10,000 flying to Zim, doing all of this. Is like, I've had a few friends who've sent money via Western Union, and they're like, do what you got to do. That's all we have, you know. And in a way, you could be like, ooh, yikes. There's no respect for the culture. But at the same time, financially, if you don't have it, then what do you do? I respect it.
What do you do? Because it's so stressful, and it brings people talk about this even in Western culture. It brings, when you're married, it starts and you have a huge wedding, you start with debt.
Yeah.
But this is also the same. You can start out with resentment, like, dude, I flew and I did all of that, and what was that? And where were you? And it was even on the day you're like separated.
Yeah. You're being told, and then you only later you come together.
Yeah. So you really have to have open communication leading into it, and try set up the day in their minds as much as you can.
Yeah.
Like overload info probably
is better than shock.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because I mean,
shocks are there.
Even people in the same culture have dealt with shocks. On the day they're like, that's the list we agreed on, because you have to agree, but not really agree, like ballpark figures. And sometimes people come back with, no, that's not good enough.
It's crazy. Would you do it again? So that I know
yes, I would. I would, but I think I would do it with now like more education. And I think I wish it's kind of heartbreaking that Zim has gone down. I think things are turning around a bit more. Like people are now incorporating culture and even the way we're dressing. We're now, but there was a section there and things were really tough in Zim, and it was becoming very materialistic and buy me a phone, buy me a laptop, and it's like, well, what's that got?
But now people are kind of like,
they're kind of coming back around. So I feel like I love to see that.
Yeah, for sure.
That's one thing I'm looking forward to with Rumbi's because seeing us all dressed up, and hopefully you guys should definitely check out when the episode comes out and we share all the content behind it. Because that to me is the beautiful part.
I agree. And I think too, even now seeing how some people are just doing the Roora as the wedding and going to court and signing is really also putting respect on our culture's name. We put some respect on it. So that I think it's really beautiful. That's I really love about it.
What are you looking forward to the most?
Just being with people. I think for me, people have always been most important. So the people I love, people I care about, being together after so long. I think just that, and being able to introduce a lot of them to Tom, and to get to know him and him to see where I come from, dancing and just what our culture is like. I think that is probably the biggest thing I am looking forward to. And just after all this work, because there's a lot that goes into planning ahead. Especially as Amanda said, the planners that we're very is this happening?
And quality as well. I mean, things can happen, but did you like it?
So I find I'm having to kind of release a lot of the pressure, pump the brakes on some of the things, and just saying, you know what, just start savoring, savor the moment, savor the experience. That's really good.
I think that's, to be honest, that's the things I love the most of the day. There's a moment when you look around and you're like, wow, okay, we pulled it off.
Yes,
And then you can really just be grateful to enjoy the time. Especially after COVID, I think this is so beautiful that everyone's coming together and doing this. And Rumbi, I cannot wait for yours. It's just going to be such a beautiful day. I know it.
Thank you.
So all the energy around you is love and light. And that's how it should be. And even I'm grateful mine worked out that way. And I'm grateful that myself brought a lot of this family over so they could see. But at the end of the day, it is just about the two of you. But it's also nice to have people hold you up. And I think that's what makes it. I still want to elope if I could. but
that's what makes it worthwhile.
It makes it worthwhile.
I'm with you. Oh my God, I'm so happy. We're so excited. And we just carried on as life as normal, and it's just such a blessing that this podcast that we started out of love for our relationship and sharing some of the things we talk about and seeing us come together. We hope you enjoyed the season.
Oh my God, I can't believe it's over.
Season finale. It's crazy. I'm like, how did you get here? So grateful for you and for just friendship, just for love, support that has carried us through, because we started this COVID times and through COVID and being here now. And
there's so much more to come. I mean, I'm gonna go through motherhood.
Yes, we are ready.
I show my bum.
Bum is here. She's bumping, and I love it.
We need to talk about motherhood. There's so much. But if there's anything, actually, we never really have done this before. If there's anything people want us to delve on, please let us know whilst we're in
us know.
hiatus as well, because that's been the most interesting thing about the podcast as well. Having people's opinions, like, oh, this or that, I like how you said this, how you said. And it's like, oh wow, we're all actually going through this thing called life together.
1000%.
And yeah, I love that I'm here with you, and such a perfect way to end our season.
Absolutely,
And
like we dreamt of this, and for it to happen, it's so special. I'm so
like COVID. What? No, yes, we need to be like seriously. So
it's been a long time coming. So thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in and for the love and support on this season. It's been epic. We look forward to bringing you more, and just like I hope, if nothing else, you take away is just we feel you and we get it. Like there's so much to life. This life thing is hard, but we hope we bring some life and love. All right, until next time. Bye, everybody.